Okay, so I just watched Beetlejuice maybe for the millionth time, but today was the first time I saw it at the Alamo Drafthouse. And I feel like every time I watch Beetlejuice, I take something else away from it. Last year when I saw it, and I got to see it at theaters last year as well, I liked the conversation about death and a way of approaching death that's digestible. Um, but this year I think I took away a lot more. And last year, another thing that weighed heavily, or that I thought a lot about, was how Lydia and the Maitlands, obviously they complemented each other's needs. The Maitlands not having a child, and perhaps Lydia wanting more stability in her parental world. And they provided that for each other. But this time, things that I noticed were the reversed exorcism. And obviously that's obvious, but I think just exploring the fact that the dead have feelings too, and perhaps that we're the ones, the living, or the idea of the living being the ones that are haunting the dead, and being the ones that are strange and unusual more so than the dead. I think we always assume that the dead are the ones that are scary, strange, and whatnot. But it really turns a table on that, as in what if, and this idea of what if the living were haunting the dead, and what would happen in that case. And I thought that was really exploring that this time mentally and visually, and watching it was really fascinating and interesting. And also, for some reason, I never caught that that Catherine O'Hara's character Delia was Lydia's stepmom. And maybe I caught it, I'm sure I caught it before and brushed it off, but this time it did mean more to me and weighed more on this in the story. It made more sense why Lydia would be obsessed with the dead, why she would be wearing black. I mean, likely her mother died, right? Likely she's still in mourning. So that was interesting to me. And another thing was, I think, before seeing the Maitlands and the Dietzes living together in the end, the idea to me before was having two groups of people get along and live together, and having this big message, which it still has that, but this time I think I saw more the idea of the living and the dead living together. It's inevitable, right? I mean, no matter what you believe in, the dead are still around. They're objects, they're ideas, they're stories. There's always going to be a relationship between the living and the dead. And, I think about those times, and even today, but I mean, films like The Poltergeist and different films had come out. And the idea before was that the death and the dead were scary, and I think this approaches that in a very different and beautiful way. Like, why would they be scary if maybe perhaps human life was beautiful and kind? Another thing that was interesting to me too was the Maitlands decided, and they make a big point in the beginning of the movie, that they didn't want to go anywhere. They wanted to stay home for their vacation, their 3-week vacation. And that's essentially why they die, because they don't go anywhere. And perhaps there's a message there. Maybe the writers were trying to say, if you don't live, like, what is living? Maybe you do need to get out there. Maybe, maybe the Maitlands did need to experience life and explore. They had the opportunity to. Why not? So I thought that was interesting. Maybe it meant nothing, but it is said a few times. They do say it a few times. I'm glad we didn't go anywhere. I'm glad we stayed home. I'm glad we stayed home. And then also just having the dog be sort of like the herald, letting them know that, or I guess in a way causing their death. Still exploring what that may have meant, but I thought that was interesting. And then another thing was just this idea that we have of heaven and hell and the in-between. I think it kind of explores that. What if I liked that the way they got to Beetlejuice initially was through digging him up. He's from hell, he's from a darker place. And then the middle place, which is known as, I'm blanking, purgatory, which is known as purgatory. I had to look that up for a second, I forgot. For some reason. I knew what it was, but I forgot. I had a mind fart. But, just feeling like purgatory was everything else in between. It was like life, like our life, basically. And then they were also stuck in the attic, which maybe that was their heaven in a way. I mean, they were happy there. He had a town there. It was their safe place. It was their safe place. The attic was their safe place. I guess it isn't exactly heaven, but I thought that was interesting and felt kind of layered, and I felt like there was something there. Those were the few things I caught this time, with Beetlejuice. Thematically, it just seems like there was so much happening, and I feel like every time I watch it, I get something more out of it. And I knew this time watching it, I would get more, and I did. And I'm, what's gonna say pleasantly surprised, but I'm not. So anyways, hope you guys enjoy Beetlejuice this holiday season, and hopefully you enjoy my thoughts.